Well, happy Thursday afternoon, Thursday morning to you guys. Hopefully, you guys are having a great Thursday coming up to Friday. Hopefully, you guys are all doing great. It's awesome to be here. This is sort of a special show we're doing because typically we do our shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. But Dr. Falconer has some pressing things going on, some interesting things he's working on, and we wanted to get him in. And so this is a special Thursday edition of Extreme Health Radio. So thanks for joining us. This is episode 609. Unreal. So if you guys want to grab the show notes for you podcast listeners, we'll put those available at extremehealthradio.com/609. And let me bring up our upcoming show schedule here so that you guys can take a look. We have so much going on Extreme Health Radio that if you go to extremehealthradio.com, you can find out our upcoming guests. We have Jason Prawl. We got Dr. Will Falconer today, obviously, and you're on that show. And we have on Friday, Jason Prawl will be talking about, longevity secrets. He just wrapped up a documentary called Human Longevity Summit or something like that. But he's a really cool guy, and he's going to be talking about a bunch of different lifestyle factors, environmental factors, and things we can all do to extend our life. So that would be cool. Then on Monday, we have Nadia Pedaguana, I think her name is, Pedaguana, I think. We're going to be talking with her about intermittent fasting. So that's going to be interesting. And then on Wednesday, we got Dr. Darren Engels, who's a local doctor of ours. Kate goes to see him a lot. And we're going to be talking with him about Lyme disease. And then next Friday, we have Dr. William Pollock. We'll be talking about PEMF and how pulsed electromagnetic field therapy can enhance our health. So we have a lot of cool stuff going on. And I want to encourage you guys to watch until the very end of this show because I've got some things I want to share with you after we hang up with Dr. Falconer. We're going to answer some questions as a group together. And I want to share with you a sauna discount that's going on right now that we don't really run that much. And then a few different summits that are happening right now, an autoimmune summit, a female hormone summit, and a pregnancy summit that I want to share with you. So if those things interest you, make sure to stick around to the very end. And I'll share links for all of those too. So today we have Dr. Will Falconer, and I've known about his work for a long time, and he's doing some really cool things out there in the holistic natural pet space. And you know, it's really awesome to have a guy like him out there doing what he's doing. And I'm just really honored to have him on the show. And so let me bring him up on the screen and. There we go. Dr. Falconer, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm well, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad. You know, you were telling me via email that you're on your way to India. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a fall trip I do typically October every year now.
Oh my goodness. And how long are you typically gone every year for that?
About 5 months.
Whoa. Wow. And what do you do in India? Do you go there every year, you said?
Yeah, it's kind of my home away from home. So I live in an ashram here in Austin, and the mothership is where I go to in India, the small village where it all started, 1922.
Wow. And so what kind of spiritual path is this that you're pursuing there?
It's called Bhakti Yoga,
Hmm.
and it's one of devotion to the personal form of God. In our case, we're most in love with Radha Krishna, and so it's I'll be when I'm first there for the first month, I'll be joining probably about 10,000 people from India and all around the world who are there all chanting divine names and meditating on the form of God as we do so.
Wow, wow, so interesting. I mean, like, who's doctor or vet does this kind of thing? That's pretty cool. Have you been going for a lot of years?
Yeah, since 2001, I haven't missed a year.
Oh my goodness, wow. And so you know India very well then. I mean, after all these years.
Well, yeah, I don't travel India a lot. I've just been across the top in UP, Uttar Pradesh. So there's a few different ashrams that is all part of the same mission, and I've been to all of those, and that's about as far as I go. So I haven't been down south, and I've never been to Nepal and those kind of places, but I'm real familiar with UP.
Wow. Wow. And were you interested in all of this before you started being a traditional vet and then moving into a holistic vet? Were you interested in spirituality and growth and things?
Yeah, way back in college days, I guess, even before I decided I was going to be a vet, I started meditating and did a twice a day practice, and so that informed my veterinary training as well. While my classmates were out getting drunk and partying, I wasn't part of that at all. I wasn't interested.
That's so funny. Wow. Wow. Yeah, we all just sort of march to our own drumbeat and have different philosophies, don't we? And, it seems like we stick out, when we do things like that and we don't participate in the group. But, if you were, you would just find no meaning in that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it very much helped inform my move. 7 years into conventional practice, I just took a leap, and it was very much following an intuition that said there's something else for you, and that something else turned out to be holistic medicine. But I didn't know at the time. I just had this clear intuition that said it's time to move on, and I gave notice to my partners at the time. I was a bought-in partner in a four-man practice, and they and my clients who were spread all over the countryside were all kind of like taken aback that why would I possibly leave? I was doing good work, they were happy, I was happy, and all that. But I said no, I got to follow this. So I think meditation probably had allowed me to get to that deeper spot to say, yeah, let me follow it, and I don't know where it's going to come out.
Wow. Wow. Did they all think you were just crazy?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounded crazy. I mean, it was a sudden thing. I laid down one night and told my wife, I'm quitting tomorrow. And
Wow.
wow, really? Okay. And so yeah, and it just altered my whole life's path. And um, I couldn't have predicted the ways that it took me. So it was uncomfortable, as transitions always are. I spent a year trying to kind of sort things out, and landed in a state of poverty and a new state, and a new partner later to be my second wife, and all sorts of things shifted. But out of it all came this direction for holistic veterinary medicine, and that was born in the fires of all this transition. So it was a really good move.
Yeah, it's so so important, isn't it, to listen to your intuition and to follow that. I mean, it's so. I think a lot of people have like a deep yearning to do something, but they just don't follow it, or maybe sometimes they feel like they can't follow it. But man, I mean, I did the same thing. I was doing. Let's see, I was doing computer work and I was doing all kinds of, work for big companies and computers and stuff. And I just knew that I had to do something different. And this was same, with you. It's like you just follow the path that's laid out for you and you kind of take small steps and hope for the best, right?
Yeah. I've often looked back and said, if I didn't follow that, it would be like I was still working for my dad or something, because there was older partners that I joined. I was the young guy, and while I was starting to get just tickles of interest in natural things like acupuncture and stuff, I probably would have gone nowhere with it. And I'm sure the guys that I left behind have just kind of retired, half fulfilled and half not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I hear you. There's so many things that I want to get and ask you about natural and holistic pet care. So I imagine that this interview is going to be a little bit different, probably that we'll just kind of bounce around a lot. But I want to start out with, because you do a lot of work with vaccinations and you do a lot of Zoom meetings. And by the way, if you guys are watching this or listening to this and you have a dog or cat and you don't follow Dr. Falconer on Facebook or on his newsletter, make sure to follow him because, Doc, you're always doing things like Zoom meetings and things like that on Facebook for people, right?
Yeah, in fact, we're doing a Zoom or a Facebook Live Friday tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time, talking about this course that's only open for enrollment for another about 48 hours. And it's centered around vaccines, which I've held for years is every pet owner's and horse owner's number one most important decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the furthest reaching Um, yeah, the better page actually now, Justin, this is the workshop that kind of led up to it, but right on that learn more up top, if you click that, you'll see the landing page. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
it's a course called No-Sodes, Talk-Toads, and Titers, and they are ways to help people get around the vaccination need with natural alternatives. And if they decide, it's up to them how they decide to come down on it. I'm not a judge of what their choices are, but if they decide they've got to vaccinate for one reason or another, part of the tools that I teach in this course is how to kind of buffer the ill effects of that um, vaccine.
Hmm.
So it's a pretty all-encompassing course. It's all in four modules, and it's got video and audio and written content. And I've just found that the more people get educated on this particular issue, the more long range outcomes they can have
Hmm.
um, for the good of the animal.
Hmm.
Again, kind of regardless of species.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we learn all the time about the dangers of vaccines in humans and people that are listening and watching. By the way, if you're watching on Dr. John Bergman's YouTube channel, welcome. You're probably wondering, who are these people? These people aren't Dr. Bergman. What are they doing here? So, welcome, you guys. We are actually in working with Dr. Bergman on the Extreme Health Academy, and that's why we're broadcasting here on Dr. Bergman's page. So, but yeah, there's a lot of people that obviously understand, the damaging effects of vaccines for humans. And I know that I think you were part of Ty Bollinger's The Truth About Pet Vaccines, right? And but people don't
Pet cancer.
realize. Oh, pet cancer. Yeah, that's right. So a lot of people don't realize like what all these things are doing to our animals and to our beloved pets, and I think it's important that people realize that.
Yeah, it's the most significant decision anybody makes in the raising of an animal. A lot of people have taken off, and the reason my page about this course starts with you may have already done natural food changes, and bravo, that's great. But your vaccine decision is more significant because you can change to a healthier diet, today and have an outcome in a week. You'll see things improve. But if you choose to vaccinate today, you may have an outcome that lasts a lifetime. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an expensive outcome more often than not. You're dealing with allergies, you're dealing with immune disorders that can be even life threatening.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a lot of emphasis on that. And that's why this course is just focused on the vaccine question, because it's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge one, and we just had Doctor, what was his name, Doctor Thomas Cowan on the show. You're probably familiar with his work. He's an MD out of somewhere, I think in San Francisco somewhere, and he's written a number of books. And he was talking about his latest book was about vaccines, and it's not just why vaccines are damaging, but he talks about like in the body of a mammal what happens when you're not allowed, at least for a human, to go through, mumps, measles, chickenpox, rubella. The long-term consequences of the cell-mediated arm of the immune system. And I imagine it's the same for animals, right? Like they may not get the flu or chickenpox, but by not allowing their body to build up white blood cells and to build up that cell-mediated arm of their immune system, I'm sure you're setting them up for, I don't know, what do you think, like a shorter lifespan, maybe instances of cancer and other diseases? What do you think?
Well, they don't have quite the what I'd call hot childhood diseases like we do. So nothing quite like measles, mumps, rubella, that kind of thing that we went through as kids and got a great immune boost from it, and probably a lifelong immune boost from it.
Uh-huh.
But we see a lot of the opposite happening, which is if they get injected with these foreign viruses, often five or seven at a time in one syringe,
Wow.
the state that's created is one that I call immune confusion. They are significantly impaired, oftentimes for the rest of their life. And nothing in conventional medicine can cure that state, even though they try at great expense and with ever increasing levels of drugs that are potentially damaging. The latest couple of rounds now are immune suppressors they're hoping a degree of just this part of the immune system that makes these dogs itch like crazy. Well, we're seeing that's as high and ideal as that is, these guys are having immune problems from the drugs they got to treat the allergies that came from being vaccinated.
Hmm.
So it's a thorny problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I've heard you on other shows talk about how how it seems like there's more and more animals that come into like that late sort of Indian summer, August, September, October, where it's really really hot. And I know our dogs, they itch like crazy. Like they're itching. My dog right now is just chewing off all of her fur on her butt because she's just itching. And one of the vets said that maybe there's an issue with the saliva of the fleas that are on her. Maybe that she's allergic to the saliva or something like that. But it seems to me like the root cause of this stuff is the fact that she was vaccinated before we got her. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it often turns out to be the case, and we back into that in various ways. So sometimes the evidence is really clear, and if you're not looking for it, it's often missed, which is that there's often a month gap between a vaccine coming and the itch or the allergy starting. So that may be subtle at first. The dog may be just chewing her paws more about a month after the shot. It's rare to see it a day after or 2 or 3 days after, but as a month goes by, a lot of these animals come in with problems. The other line of evidence we've seen that's been purely from homeopathic practice is that unless and until when we're trying to cure an allergic dog, which is hard work, they're all unique in how they need to be cured.
Mm-hmm.
But unless and until we address the state of what we call vaccinosis, that illness that came from being vaccinated, we're often blocked in getting them well. And when we introduce a vaccinosis remedy, there's several of them to choose from. So we look at the case and decide what's the best. Then we'll see a forward motion happening again. So that was something that Dr. Pitcairn discovered years ago, and as a student of his in his early teachings, it's been true in my practice for years and years. And then we've got a whole nother line of evidence that says, in scientific studies, published studies, that a month after a vaccine, some of these animals come in with just deadly autoimmune diseases and or tumors, tumors at the injection site. So from all these corners, we're getting the evidence that vaccines are damaging.
And do you think there's like what do you think the long term issues are? Because it's crazy the instances of cancer in animals. I mean, it's crazy how they're sort of mimicking the rising cancer rates in humans, and I'm wondering if there's a connection. I mean, obviously there's a lot of lifestyle, food, diet, and a lot of animals are kept inside and these types of things. But I have to think that at least with cancer, there's some sort of connection, right, to the vaccines.
Yeah, very definitely. I mean, cancer is an immune system asleep, right? You and I and every dog on the planet is making some tumor cells on a daily basis. And it's up to our immune systems to say, I see you, you're foreign, you're going down, and attack it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what happens on a real simple level of explanation is that when we inject these multiple viruses via a syringe right into the central core, you might say, by picking up the skin or jabbing it in the leg, we bypass all of nature's natural roadblocks that say, you can't get to the inner core. We've got lymph nodes, we've got IgA antibodies all here ready to stop you. And we've got typically in nature one virus knocking at the door, whether that's parvo or distemper or something. We don't have five at once.
All right.
So that the other is when you inject five things into an animal and you bypass all those defenses that Mother Nature, you know, put there for millennia, then we've got immune confusion. And immune confusion means you start overreacting to things that should be ignored, like the saliva of a flea has never been a threat. Dogs have lived with fleas forever and they shouldn't go wild and chew their coats out and make themselves bloody over that. Or they're allergic to a bite of chicken, which is just a normal food. And dogs and any wild ancestor or cousin like a wolf would eat a bird in a heartbeat and not expect to have an allergic reaction to it. So immune confusion is the overarching thing, and yeah, over time that can give rise to cancer. And I have people writing me every day, Justin, and commenting on my blog every day at vitalanimal.com, saying, we gave the shot, and 3 weeks or 4 weeks later, he was in again because he had tumors. So it's a real clear correlation. One preceded the other.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially, I mean, how bizarre is it to have a tumor develop in such a short amount of time right at the injection site? I mean, we're seeing that in humans as well. It's just, it's crazy how connected that is.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very difficult tumors too. The cats are the ones that are most prone to that. And these malignant tumors are often at the shoulders where it's a common place to give the injection.
Uh-huh.
And the surgeons go in and lop it off, and it comes right back with a vengeance, actually. It often
Mhm.
comes back a little faster than it first grew. And these things just finally take the cat's life. They're just malignant and they don't give up.
Mhm. Yeah, it's nuts. So if you were to sort of, if we could, sort of aggregate all of the animals in terms of like dogs and cats, like all the different species, because there's an average lifespan for all the different species. But if you were to sort of aggregate all those together, and let's say the average lifespan is 10 years for a dog, you probably actually know what that is. But how long do you think dogs should be living, and how long could they live? Do you think?
Well, we've got some good history on that, actually. So it wasn't uncommon when I was growing up, in the 50s, 60s, to see animals with 14 years, 16 years. The smaller the breeds, the longer they can go. And that has just been constantly pushed back in the 40 years that I've been a vet, or close to 40 years now, to where conventional veterinary medicine now calls it a senior if an animal is 6 years old and over. And the lifespan is closer to 9 or 10 for some of these breeds, like golden retrievers, who's the most popular breed on the planet, I think, still for the last probably 5, 10 years. Their lifespan is rare to make it to 12. If they're doing things all naturally, they can extend that, yes, but the norm now has dropped significantly.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And plus, you figure environmental toxins as well. We had a dog growing up, really great cocker spaniel mix, and my mom. Back in the day, back in the 80s, would spray the house with, or spray the yard with Monsanto's Roundup. And subsequently, in 1995, she got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I think as a result of that, and then our dog died a few years later from the same exact disease. It's crazy.
Oh, the non-Hodgkin's was in your mom?
Yeah, she had it. She was diagnosed in '95, and that's the trigger to why I started doing what I'm doing with this radio show. And then a few years after that, our dog died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma as well. And she
Oh,
sprayed heavily with that Monsanto Roundup.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
all too common, right? And so our world is not what it was, just 50 years ago. It's a very different place. And we sort of paralleled the rise in vaccines that kids have gone through, but not nearly to the degree of kind of blasting them. The trouble is, even though we've got officialdom saying every 3 years is an okay interval, 60% of my colleagues in conventional medicine are still pushing people to vaccinate annually. And there is zero science behind that. There's just no logic to it at all. And the immunologists in the veterinary field say that's ludicrous to do. But vets are really this independent bunch who can say, that's what we're doing in my practice. And no one steps in to chastise them or, you know, threaten to take away their license. It's just hands off.
wow. So tell people a little bit about titers and how they work, because people may not understand what those are and why. For like why. I mean, I sort of know why, but man, it gets me frustrated that they don't recognize titers. Like, but I mean, it's a business. This whole thing is a business, and if they recognize that, then it cuts their profit margins. But talk a little bit about titers and why vets should start looking at those as valid evidence. Do you think?
Yeah, titers are real simply just a measure of the amount of antibodies in a dog's blood to a given virus, usually. So we can measure rabies titers, we can measure distemper titers and parvo titers and Lyme titers, et cetera, et cetera. And the evidence of a titer in and of itself says that there's been an immune response against that thing. So you can also get a titer from a natural exposure to those things. A common mistake we see all over veterinary medicine is an animal will have a positive Lyme titer. And the vets go in and blast this animal with a month or 2 months of antibiotics saying your dog's got Lyme, when it could just mean my dog is not showing any symptoms and is really just mounting a great immune response to this Borrelia organism. So they're measurements of antibody, and they're not a complete measure of immunity, but they're one good indicator that yes, this dog stepped up and said, I'm responding to this foreign thing that was either injected or I contacted on the street.
Hmm. Okay, so yeah, it's measuring their antibody production as a result of this, and so the reason why they most vets don't recognize the titer is,
Yeah,
what do you
it's a
think?
funny, it's unfamiliarity largely. So as a doctor, we're often kind of put in the position of the expert. And if there's no, if you never have spare time as a doctor, you're too busy in practice and et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
So a lot of vets don't know what a titer is. And rather than say, let me study that, I'll go home tonight and learn about titers and get back to you tomorrow. They just say, we just vaccinate. It's cheaper, it's easy, and it's all because of unfamiliarity, and we want to do something. Let's do something for your animal, and this is what we've been doing for years, and we're going to keep doing it.
Hmm.
So, and I suspect, I haven't thought of this angle, but I suspect that the profit margin on a titer is probably it costs a lot more to run a titer than it does to get a dose of vaccine out of the fridge. So maybe that's entering into it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating because when we had our dogs, we have two little girls, and they were both vaccinated before we got them, and now they're trying to get us to do, keep trying to get you to do the booster shots, and keep trying to get you to do all of the updates on the vaccines, and so as far as I know, they got the rabies shot, and I'm not sure what else they got, but and now they're trying to do the boosters on the rabies shot, and it's unreal. Like, it just blows me away
Yeah.
that they want to keep doing these, vaccines.
Yeah, and part of what I'm teaching in this course, that the tighter part is that conventional, actually, we're opening with it. The first module is all about kind of the state of animal health today, and do these vaccines even work repeatedly? Turns out that the immunologists say they do not. There's no booster on every repeated vaccine that comes on in someone who was already, like your dog, injected and immune from an early life shot. So there's no science behind all that repetition, and that's what no one's kind of stepping up to say. Oh, I'm going to change my practice because there's good research from immunologists in the veterinary field
Hmm.
that say that's a practice that lacks efficacy, that lacks validity, that has no science behind it.
Hmm. Do you think that it is wise or even possible for someone who sees a conventional vet to try to get them interested in something like titers, or is this more geared towards educating doctors to open their minds up? Because it seems like, I don't know, whenever I go to see a conventional doctor, which is, I do my best to stay out of doctors' offices, but whenever I do, they always seem very sort of like they know it all and they can't be told anything by a patient, and they have the answers for everything, and so to try to convince a doctor is really challenging, at least for me. What do you think about the angle people should go after here?
Well, what I see is consumers, animal owners have a power of the pocketbook. And I've been teaching for years now, and it's part of my calling, and it's what I've really stepped up to. I've slowed my practice down, not taking new patients, etc. But I've upped the teaching because I see that pet owners and horse owners and whatever owners are much more open-minded to change. When they hear facts like this, that there's a possibility of damaging my animal by getting more shots and more shots, they'll take that to their wallet and demand titers. And the vets that survive that demand are going to be the ones that are open-minded enough to change. So I'm not going to have students coming to me who are vets. I have a handful, but they found me because I've been, kind of putting this out there for years on the internet. A couple of vets come in and say, "Well, I'm going to change my ways," but the animal owning population is far bigger and far more open-minded. So I have a lot of articles that say fire your vet if you're getting told to do annual vaccines. They don't deserve another nickel of your money. And that, my hope is that we'll educate a population of, open-minded animal owners to raise amazingly what I call vital animals and set a standard for what's offered in veterinary practices.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. And if you guys want to check out Dr. Falconer's website, it is vitalanimal.com, and I recommend that you do that. He's got a really cool course. I put it in the chat room if you guys want to check it out, but I'll put it in the show notes for this particular page too. And you know what I would also probably recommend is if you change doctors, vet doctors, then I would tell them why. I think it's important for them to know why you're going to change. So if you guys want to grab the show notes to this particular page, let me make sure I get this particular podcast. It is extremelealthradio.com/609. And I wanted to show you a really cool product that we've been really high on lately, and that's the Stockton Aloe One. I'm not sure if you guys can see that on the screen. Yeah, I brought that up. If you guys go to the local health food store, you probably know the benefits of aloe vera. I mean, aloe vera has been used for centuries for all kinds of different health ailments, and it's one of the most potent and powerful superfoods in the world, but unfortunately we just don't get enough of it, and it's really amazing for digestion. It's really anti-inflammatory, it's antifungal, it's antiviral. You can put it on cuts and burns and sunburns topically. But what's cool about it is that everything it does topically, it actually does internally as well. The problem when you go to a health food store is a lot of the other brands, like they have all these excipients, they're pasteurized, they're heated, they're not raw, and there's all these other weird ingredients in there. And I haven't really been able to find one until recently that just has the pure aloe. Ideally, it would be better if we all could grow our own aloe and then cut it fresh. But if you don't have the time to do that, because you're probably a busy working person like all of us, Stockton Aloe One is amazing. And what they do is, what's really cool is they fresh pick this stuff and they harvest it and they bottle it and they ship it to you frozen. They don't even ship on the weekends because they don't want it sitting in the sun. And it comes to you fresh frozen, and you just defrost some like the night before, and then you can drink like a therapeutic dose, which is like 6 to 12 ounces a day. And talk about gut health improvement. If you're going to do a gut health sort of rebuilding program, Stockton Aloe One, this should be a part of everybody's diet. The guy that started the company, Rodney Stockton, I think he lived till he was about 96 or something, and he credited his long life to aloe vera. And aloe is, the benefits of it are just incredible. Like it's filled with enzymes, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, weird, unique kind of substance called ormus. We did a whole show about this weird substance called ormus, and the benefits of this are just incredible. It has long chain polysaccharides and accelerates wound healing internally and externally. So if you really want to try this stuff out, I'd recommend buying some Stockton Aloe One. And I also wanted to tell you about this really cool Magnetico mattress sleep pad. We did a whole show with Dr. Dean Bonley a while back on this, and subsequently we got our own. And there's something incredibly beneficial about using magnetism for your health. And that's why in our store we have the 3 different sections called light, water, and magnetism. And as Dr. Jerry Tennant says, healing is voltage. And we're electrical long before we're biological. So we're electrical beings. We're beings that hold on to light. And unfortunately, the magnetic charge of our environment and of the earth is decreasing. And we did a whole show with Dr. Dean Bonley about this. It's really fascinating. I can't really make a claim here, but our kids who are now 2 months old have been sleeping on the Magnetico, and they're sleeping like 12 hours a night. It's unbelievable. They're almost 3 months old, and they've been doing this since we brought them home, basically from the hospital. And so this is just incredible. To bring more magnetism into your life is going to be an incredibly beneficial thing for you. And I always advocate to optimize the areas of your life and of your house where you spend the most time. So that's obviously going to be where you sleep and where you work. And then you can start working on other areas where you spend less time. But if you really want to increase your health, increase your immunity, increase your body's electrical voltage and the ability for your body to transfer electrons and to create mitochondrial ATP, magnetism is really amazing for that. So go to our store and listen to the show we did with Dr. Dean Bonley, and you can learn all about these Magnetico mattress pads. Let me bring Dr. Falconer back up on the show, and I want to ask him, Doc, what I was saying before, I think it's probably a good thing, right? If you're going to change doctors, don't you think it would be a good idea to tell them why you're changing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
encourage all my readers to do that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, because if they never know why, then if there's enough people that tell them why, then obviously they're going to start changing their mind and start at least looking into these things like, in the middle of the night when no one's around so no one can bother them, and they're researching this stuff on their own. That's what we want them to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the only way to make an impact in my mind. The other that I, you know, happily talk about with my readers is that when you've got an amazingly vital animal, that animal is like a magnet. Oftentimes, a dog in a dog park that's been fed a healthy diet and has minimal to no vaccines and is just a well balanced behavioral love bug, they draw people to them like a magnet. I call them my vital animal ambassadors. So then a story starts, how did you get them to be this amazing? And so between that and telling your vet why you're leaving, I think a movement for, that's really going to just radiate out in ripples to affect many, many people is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. Well, we have a lot of things that we need to talk with you about, and I think we're just going to have to jump around a little bit because I want to be, cognizant of your time. Um, so I wanted to ask you about a lot of these things now. Dogs are getting these tracking chips, and you probably, you probably know about all about them. Are these things damaging? We just did a whole show with a guy on Wi-Fi and 5G and all this wireless radiation and home remedies for it. But in your opinion, do you think there's any issues with putting these chips? Because we have, I think, a chip in both of our dogs, and we're going to get those out as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm still a little on the fence. I mean, the the counter argument is, people that lose their dog can be reunited with them due to these chips, whereas often collars fall off or a tag falls off. So I hear that argument from my students, and I also hear the other side, which is, these things can migrate. I have concerns about, again, like you just talked about, the magnetism. We're electromagnetic creatures, including our dogs. We've got meridians running through and carrying chi from point A to point B. How do these things interrupt that flow? I don't think we've measured that, and I think it's hard to measure, but I think it's safe to assume these things can get in the way of that. So
Mm-hmm.
I have concerns about them. It's not as obvious as put in a chip and see a tumor like it is installing a vaccine, in a certain percentage of cats. But it's a concern. I think it's worth, digging on and thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because anything that's ultimately not natural would be, in my opinion, after 609 shows doing this for the last 6 years, It's just, at the very least, in my opinion, it seems like it could just put a burden on the immune system. Whether that's, a big burden or a small burden remains to be seen, and it's probably not even measurable. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about those chips that seems really, really, I don't know, just doesn't seem right. What about shampoos that people might be able to use for their dogs? We're doing some things with our dogs with, what is that called? Diatomaceous earth, but that's not really a shampoo. Is there an issue with dogs scratching and, and putting shampoo on that changes the pH of their skin? And is there an issue with that? And if so, like what kinds of shampoos are good for dogs, do you think?
Yeah, the biggest thing I see, Justin, is that if people use bathing with shampoo to help quell an itch, um, there's a couple of ways that can go wrong. One is if they're medicated, you'll see shampoos on the shelf or coming home from the vet, especially that are medicated with one thing or another. Those are going to suppress symptoms as opposed to curing them. And suppression's never our friend. It's never a good idea. And the other is repeated shampooing dries out the coat. And so when you have dryness in the coat or in the skin, the itch level tends to go up. So there's a number of natural shampoos out on the market, real simple ingredients, things that you wouldn't mind shampooing your own hair with. Those things are fine, but no more than at the very high end once a week if you've got a dog who's getting dirty all the time, or you find that a bathing helps settle down their itch level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a challenging thing because you want to make sure you get the right thing for your dogs. Got a message here from Shelly, wants to know, what about raw dog bones, raw eggs, and or supplements? Are those good for the dogs, do you think?
Yeah, all good things. I've got a whole page on bones. Let me just get that for you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I
And
was I was under the understanding that if they're cooked bones, then they could splinter off and have issues with the dog, right?
yeah, exactly. That's more the risk. But coming out of veterinary school, I used to, do the warning, don't give any bones to your animals because that's where we were trained, and I kind of ignored the fact that I grew up with dogs who got, cooked steak bones on a regular basis and never had trouble with it, might have had a
Wow.
hard stool or something. Until enough clients just said, Dr. Falconer, it's fine what you're saying, except here's our experience. We've been feeding even chicken bones that have been cooked for years to generations of dogs. And then I had to kind of rethink it. And I go into that on this page a little bit. So yeah, I think they're wonderful. I would only do them raw. And if it's a situation where an animal has never had them before, on this page, I counsel about going a little bit slow and starting with a softer bone, like a poultry bone. But
Okay.
yeah, they're the best toothbrush on the planet, for instance.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, because that's an issue with dogs, obviously. Yeah, we give our dogs raw bones a lot, quite often. They just love to suck that marrow right out of the middle of that thing, don't they? They love it. So yeah, we'll just jump around a little bit, I think, because there's a lot of different questions coming in here. Okay, let me try to pick another one. Let's see. What about, just trying to scroll through, trying to see here. What about fleas, worms, and parasites? And then I'll ask you about heartworms after that. But what are some natural things people might be able to consider with those three things?
I've got a whole page I'll send you called Non-Toxic Flea Control,
Oh, cool.
and share that with your readers. Yeah, it's one of the most popular pages on my site. So there's plenty of natural things to do, and the heart of it all is looking at the life cycle of the flea. So all these poisonous products that are out there on the market are aimed at the very top of the pyramid of flea population, and it's all about poisoning the adult flea. Well, the side effects of those chemicals, which are, every vet will be happy to sell you different varieties of, is that they've got some toxic side effects for the dog and for the people and for the fish in the environment as they get, washed of this stuff. So they're poisons. They're neurotoxins. Actually, they paralyze the flea or the parasite, and the thing falls off. The scariest one that's on the market right now is a flea pill. I think it kills other worms as well. It's called Bravecto, and within 2 hours of ingestion, the fleas start dying. So they're giving the dog a poison pill, all disguised in something really tasty and good and yummy, and then the fleas start dying off 2 hours later. And this thing lasts for I think 2 months or 3 months, one dose. So vets love it. They get what they call compliance, meaning people are doing something to, kill off these pests. But no one's putting two and two together and saying, wait, what's the vehicle for the poison to get to the flea? It's my dog's blood.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, I just pulled up an article. NexGard, Bravecto, Simparica are oral flea
Yeah.
and tick safe for dogs. We had years ago someone wanting, or a vet wanting to give us something called Apoquel. Have you heard about that one?
Yeah, that is the top search term that brings people to my site actually. So yeah, it's a real tenuous drug. It's one of these immune suppressors that hopes to suppress just this tiny part of the immune system, and it's like a shotgun. So it doesn't just do the good thing. Dogs
Hmm.
come back with tumors afterwards, and if you search vitalanimal.com at articles for that term, you'll find a whole ton of people. I must have 400 comments on this one. Let me see if I can remember the URL
Wow.
for you. People are just having all sorts of issues with it. While some aren't, yet, but to me, it's like waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Hmm.
So it's been a watch out. Here it is. Q
Yeah, Doc, if
Q.
you can send me some of those links, I'll put them all in the show links for people that are listening and on the podcast and stuff, and that way people can go and read those different articles that you have on your site. I think that'd be very helpful for people.
I'm putting it in chat, and I hope you're getting it.
Oh, cool. Are you doing it on the chat for YouTube?
It's on the vmixcall.com chat.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
little
I don't.
window.
You know what? You know how I was telling you before the show, man. I don't even know how to use vMix. I can't even see. I can't see that. So maybe if you can sort of aggregate those together, and I can put them, in the show notes or something. I'm not even sure where the vMix chat is. It's crazy. Um,
Yeah, I'm just a pen down at the corner, so I'm popping them in there left and right. So
Oh,
yeah.
cool, cool. Yeah, I know it's crazy with Apoquel. We did some research on that and found out all the same stuff that you're talking about. And I just want to encourage everyone to, if your doctor recommends something, you know, take his recommendation and go search it in Google and type in dangers after the word. For those of you that follow us on Instagram, we had a very complicated pregnancy. And at one point during the pregnancy, Kate went to the emergency room because she was in so much pain. She has a 9 centimeter, or her body had a 9 centimeter fibroid tumor. And that, with twins and that, it was just unreal. And I forget what they wanted to give her in the emergency room, but it's on our Instagram if you guys scroll through, but I forgot the name of it. And then she refused it, and they really were pushing this on her really hard. And we went home and did some research, and man, the side effects were like mental retardation in children, death of the mom. I mean, this stuff was just unreal. And then people in forums talking about how their kid has forever been damaged by this, and they beat themselves up and they feel guilty for taking it. And man, I mean, with the power of the internet today, it's always best, don't you think, Doc, to just research everything your doctor says, whether it's your medical doctor or your vet, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a resource we shouldn't ignore.
Mm-hmm.
There's pages on even Facebook that have got, you can type in a word like a drug word and say um, side effects, and people will have a page about it, and people just pile into this page like, does NextGard kill dogs? There's a page on Facebook, and it's been going for, oh gosh, it's got to be 8 or 10 years. People writing in saying, well, I gave it and my dog got horribly sick and we lost her 2 months later. So yeah, it's out there.
It's out
You
there.
really got to do your due diligence.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. Um, Wanted to ask you about too some different things. I have a bunch of different emails coming in and people chatting. Um, what about dog food? I know it's obviously different for cats, and obviously it's going to depend on the breed of the dog and what they're already been eating for the most of their life and their current state of health. But in general, what are your thoughts about what kind of food dogs should eat?
Well, there's a buzzword that you'll find called species appropriate diet. And what it speaks to is a really important understanding that I've been calling out for just decades now, which is that our dogs have a 99% genetic overlap with the wolf. And although it's probably not measured quite so well in the cat, it's got to be very close, between our domestic cats and the wild cats like the bobcat. And what we know about the wolf, for instance, is that they have a digestive system that says, where's the prey? That's what millennia worth of being on the planet has been their food. And yeah, we've got dogs now who can digest starch. They've kind of been hanging around people for years and years, and so can break down starch. But is that the best food for them? No. And would a wolf ever, come across a pile of kibble sitting out in the forest? Of course not. So those foods are very foreign to the animal and they survive on them. I mean, no question about it. But we have to kind of step out of that mindset of science knows best and trust that we couldn't possibly make food or change diets because Hill Science Diet knows the best, or a veterinarian knows the best way. And you read the list on some of these labels of from low ball to premium pet foods that are sitting in a bag on the shelf, and you go, well, I could never do that. Look at all the ingredients, I can't even pronounce them.
Mm-hmm.
But you can think about what a wolf would eat and feed your dog along similar lines. So it's raw, it's never cooked, it didn't run through a campfire first, and it's largely meat and bone together. They don't ever just eat the meat off a carcass and leave the bone. They would eat the bone as well and get some great calcium along with their phosphorus, along with their protein. And it's a lesser amount of organs. They'll go for the organs, especially the alpha animals. That's the first place they go when they brought down a prey animal, and a little bit of vegetation. So we can mimic that in the food dish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all that different between dogs and cats when you step into that balanced raw sphere. So I'll include a link to a food page I've got as well when I send you these things.
Oh, great,
But
great.
it's a real it's a place where you can do tons of good, and it doesn't have to be a complicated thing, and it doesn't have to be a long-term switch. The worst case scenario is if you've had a dog who's been on kibble for years and you change tomorrow to a good balanced raw diet, you might have a loose stool for a bowel movement or two. You might not even have one. So it's not something that, history dictates what you can or can't do. It's more like how long are you going to wait before you start feeding something that's more appropriate to the species?
Yeah, yeah, and having that combination between the organ meat, the muscle, and the bone, I imagine, creates a nice acid alkaline balance, because if you're just getting the muscle meat, I would imagine that's a lot of acid. But I don't know how dogs break down acids if they're only eating acids, like if it's different from humans. But if a dog in a natural world would eat all three of those constituents of their prey, it would make sense. Then that would be a nice acid alkaline balance. Thomas wants to know about lipomas. What are your thoughts about them? Are they dangerous with dogs, and can they be? Are they like repositories for toxins? Do you think? What do you think they are, and how can we get rid of those things?
Lipomas are very common, and the nickel word for it is fatty tumor. So I think they're a byproduct of vaccinations largely.
Oh.
And yeah, I've often thought of them as maybe a wastebasket. They're way out on the periphery, away out of harm's way. And are they just a depot for toxins? Possibly. The only time I really have concerns about them, I don't ever tell people to chop them out. That's another term you can look at on my blog, vitalanimal.com/blog. There's a search box. You can type in lipoma and see a picture of a patient of mine who had a huge lipoma, and we were just coaxing along trying to get the dog healthy. The goal is that we get the animal so healthy that they don't need to make these things. And I suspect that those animals who are naturally reared right from birth or even from their parents or grandparents on through their life aren't going to get lipomas. So it's one of many man-made diseases. And I don't fear them or think they've got to throw somebody into high gear unless they're just cropping up, rapidly and the dog is like a walking mass of lipomas. You'll see some
Hmm.
of those.
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder with some of those, if they're just small little ones that kind of just stay put, or maybe they're growing very, very slowly. I wonder if there's things like, like the PEMF, or maybe like cannabis or acupuncture. I wonder if there's some of these things we do as humans that can, help affect some of these things on dogs. I wonder.
Yeah, I suspect so. I mean, I see him do one of two things when we're treating homeopathically. So if we get the remedy figured out and the dog is getting healthier on all other counts, these things will back off and either they'll shrink away and disappear, or more often what they'll do is just stop making new ones. And I'm happy with either end result. It tells me that they're no longer in that state of ill health where they need to keep making more.
Uh huh. So in terms of homeopathy. In terms of that, you've been working primarily with that sort of function and that sort of healing modality with animals. And so, do you treat primarily using that, or are there other ways that you treat animals as well, or is homeopathy your primary go-to source?
That's my primary medical modality, but I would
Okay.
never shirk on nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
so at the basis of feeding this animal in a species appropriate way
Mm-hmm.
to, give them all the raw materials they need to have a healthy functional immune system. And I'll also usually add into that some transfer factors to help boost the immune system even further and have them really, on high alert for things that don't belong there, whether they're tumor cells or they're foreign invaders.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when I've got a sick animal who's coming in with symptoms and we give them immune support, get them on a healthy diet, I'll specifically tune into that particular animal and how that animal shows their suffering and give them a course of homeopathy that's based entirely on their own individual pattern of illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fascinating modality. For those that are listening on the Dr. John Bergman YouTube channel, I'm probably going to stay on the Extreme Health Radio YouTube channel in order to take questions. But Julia brought up an interesting point. They wanted to put her 11-year-old lab under anesthetic in order to remove these lipomas that we're just talking about. Isn't that? I mean, then you got a whole issue with the anesthesia in that medicine, what that does to their nervous system, right?
Well, it's not so much in the nervous system, but it's their detoxification system. So um, most healthy animals with the anesthesias they have today, the anesthetics that are in use today, can overcome that quite handily. The older they are and the more feeble their health, the more that becomes a risk. Some
Uh-huh.
don't leave the operating table. But more the issue is, as doctors, we want to always do something. And, seeing lumps, we say, a surgeon says, well, a chance to cut is a chance to cure. So I wouldn't approach it that way as a natural healer, and nor would any of my colleagues. Well, I shouldn't say any of them, but my colleagues in holistic medicine or especially homeopathic medicine, that wouldn't be their first choice either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, because as a doctor, you always want to do something instead of taking a slower approach. And she said afterwards that that's why she stopped vaccinating, because every time she got new vaccination, she would get those fatty lumps within weeks, which is golly, it's just nuts what's going on out there, and people just don't realize how this is all connected. When it comes to animals and cancer, like what are some basic foundational approaches to your animal and making sure they don't develop cancer? Because I don't know what the cancer rates are in dogs. You probably know. I mean, it's really
Oh, they're
high.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
When when Ty Bollinger did his last Truth About Pet Cancer, it came out that it's less than, or it's more than 1 in 2 dogs now will die of cancer in their lifetime. So it's like
Wow.
1 in 1.65 dogs now, and that rate has just steadily increased. So growing up with dogs in the 50s and 60s and 70s, it was a rare thing, and you didn't expect it at all unless somebody was, well past middle age and, maybe a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or something. And now we're seeing the age drop and drop and drop. So, and these drugs are not helping the situation. So I remember a case recently who wrote into my blog and said, I've got a 3-year-old who took Apoquel and is now suffering lymphoma. A 3-year-old. And I said, nowhere on the planet or on God's green earth should there be a 3-year-old fighting cancer in a dog. I mean, it's just unheard of. And I'm
Wow.
sure we're seeing parallels in the kids as well. So it all comes to how we raise these guys. And the big aha that I had when I was several years into holistic practice was that the wild cousins like the wolf and the bobcat do not deal with these things called chronic diseases, whether that's cancer or arthritis or hypothyroidism or any kind of autoimmune disease. So the aha was they're man-made. And we often in my profession are the ones that are causing them, often ironically in the name of prevention. So we're over vaccinating, we're sending them out the door, with lifeless food, toxic food. Kibbles are very toxic in most cases. And we're killing fleas, we're killing heartworm larvae. Don't use any fancy word like preventative for those things. They are killers, they're poisons. So to the extent that we start out with clean stock, there's a raft of people now doing something called natural rearing, and they've really been doing it for decades, but they're coming to the fore more now. And what it means is they've got generations of breeding now of mom and grandma and great grandma and great granddad and on generations where they haven't vaccinated these animals, and they've fed them a healthy raw diet and they haven't poisoned things. When these animals get together and have an offspring, that animal's way ahead of the curve. And then the person who's getting them takes them and raises them in a natural rearing sort of a style. That's a whole nother course I've taught, to take them from day one of birth and ask the breeder to not do some things that they might do and take them all the way through the first year of life. Those animals are not likely to fall prey to these common chronic diseases, and cancer, number one among them.
Wow. Yeah, so fascinating because we're thinking about getting a third dog. We just, God, we just love dogs so much, and we're thinking about getting a King Cavalier. But where would someone go if they want to get a dog that's clean like this, that has clean genetics? Is there a search term that we could search and try to find these kind of animals?
Yeah, the search term is natural rearing, or NR. Everybody abbreviates it NR. So NR breeders. And you need to do a little interviewing because it's a self-assigned label.
Okay.
Um, we put together, this is maybe a year old now, and there may have been some that should be added to it. But if you shoot me an email when we get off here, and I'm going to have to probably wrap up in another 10 minutes, I'll send you a list we put together of people that we vetted. There's a lot of people that can call themselves natural rearing breeders, and actually they've got some stock that's been vaccinated, or they're buying semen from vaccinated males because they don't have their own male who's healthy to breed with, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm real cautious about just saying, oh, if you're calling yourself NR, we're good to go.
I
So
see.
I'll do that to you, and you're free to share that with folks. But
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good place to start.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, if you can, if we can get access to those links, that would be amazing. Then we can point everyone over to your website for all the different show notes that we talked about. Just in wrapping up, because I want to make sure that you have, even more time to get on with your next appointments and things. Um, where can people contact you? Like, because I know for me, if I'm listening to this right now, I'm thinking to myself, I live in Iowa, I live in Canada, I live wherever. I want this guy to be my vet. So trying to ask the questions that people probably are thinking as they're listening. So how can people connect with you? Is it through online, mostly online, or can they get access to your courses? Like, what's the best way for people to sort of have
Yeah,
you as their vet?
yeah. Again, I want to put it out there that I'm not taking new patients right now. So
Okay.
the best way to reach me and to learn from me, the reason I'm taking less and less patients is I want to get out in front of what passes for prevention. And that's what teaching can do. So I spent decades talking to one owner at a time and teaching them all this stuff to get their animal out of the chronic disease state that they were in and get their next animal, free of that state. And I just realized that there was no math to that. I couldn't scale that. So the reason I'm teaching much more and saying, I'm rarely taking new patients now is I can affect many more animals this way. If I can get out in front of the damage that's often done in the name of prevention,
Mm-hmm.
nobody's going to need a vet, holistic or otherwise, because they're just going to be rocking and rolling and raising amazing animals that are these magnetic ambassadors. So the best place to go is just vitalanimal.com. That's a given. That's where I live online. And from there, you'll see a share button or a Facebook button. And I'm a little bit on Twitter. Probably most of my people are on Facebook. And so like I mentioned, I'll have a live there tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central. And that's on Facebook. It's just called Vital Animal Pack. And so that's a good place to see me live and ask questions and chat and that sort of thing. That's just about 24 hours away.
Oh, nice. And so if people are wanting to connect further, I know you have courses and you did do different things. Is it like a membership, or do you have like, a bunch of courses where people can get access to? And then if they do, is there a community of people, or is that primarily on Facebook?
It varies. So I've got courses that come and go. The one that's available right now is the No Sods, Tot Toads, and Tigers one. And that's open until Saturday. And then we'll close enrollment and I'll get busy teaching the crowd inside.
Okay.
Um, I've got a membership called Vital Animal Alpha that also opens periodically. We'll probably open that once more toward the end of the year. And that's a chance to study veterinary homeopathy for acute troubles. And so that's a membership site. People are in there on a monthly basis. We have a live Zoom meeting where I answer questions about not only the remedies for animals, but just natural rearing ideals. And actually, this I'm just thinking of this. The two are kind of tied together. This course that's on enrollment open till Saturday midnight has a bonus of a free month in the Alpha membership course. So they can
Oh,
take a look around and see if that's something they'd like to stay in. Normally that enrollment is closed except for a couple of times a year when I open it and launch it. So that's a way to get a taste right now with a real inexpensive course. The No Sods course is a very inexpensive one. And then
okay.
I've got a fairly large community on the natural rearing roadmap. But again, that's just for people who take that very large course. That's a more in-depth course. We've got a members only Facebook group that goes with that. So the alpha people can also chat on the people who are studying homeopathy with me have a dedicated Facebook page that's private. And we have these live meetings every month that go an hour, and a lot of lessons in a library there. So I'm in various places, but yeah, I have a limited amount of time as well. So I can't that comes certainly.
Yeah, I'm just reading some of your modules here. What are no-sods? How do they work? when and how to use no-sodes, protocols and expectations, no-sode cautions, and then what are tatodes, how do they work, and then, gosh, you have so much stuff here. This is great. So if someone, it seems to me probably the best thing for people to do would be to get on your email list, right? Because it looks like there's a lot of different courses that you have that you don't have on the internet until you open them, right? And then if they get on your email list, then they could find out when you're going to open the doors, and that's how they know when these things open, right?
Yeah, yeah. The email list is just joining my Vital Animal Pack, which is a free membership, and there's some real cool freebies when you join that, like a Bach flower remedy course for animals and an Apoquel alternatives report, which tells people how to find and hire a good homeopathic vet and things to do if your animal is itching like crazy and you don't want to go the conventional route. That all comes when you join the Vital Animal Pack. So I'll be sure and enclose a link to how to get on board with that. That's a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great because if like I was saying, if your courses sort of come and go and open and close, if people aren't on your email list or aren't following you on Facebook, they'd have no idea that these things are
Exactly.
now opening. So, okay, cool. So this one that you're doing now is open till this Saturday at 11 or 12 midnight. Is that right?
That's right, and that's Central Time, so a little bit later for you guys on the West Coast.
Okay, awesome. Well, Doc, thank you so much for your time today. Man, you're amazing, and I just love following your stuff, and I watch your stuff on Facebook, and you're out there helping so many people, and it's so necessary for people to realize there's natural choices, natural options for their animals. They don't have to take these drugs. I'm just super excited that you're doing what you're doing, and I love your work, and so that's why I wanted to have you on. So thank you.
My pleasure, Justin. Thanks for having me. The more
Awesome.
we can spread the word, the more animals benefit.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And yeah, if you could send me those links, and I'll send you the link when it goes live as well for this particular show. And then maybe after you get back from India, we can talk again.
Absolutely, be happy to.
Awesome. All right, Doc, I'm going to sign off here. Thank you for your time, and you're amazing. Thanks to, for your work. And most importantly, have fun in India.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Doc.
All right, take care, Justin.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
All right, there you go, Mr. Dr. Will Falconer. We've had a lot of people ask recently about whether or not you're going to have a natural vet on the show, and we have had we had Kevin Behan on the show years ago talking about natural dog training. So if you guys are interested in that, maybe I'll put a link to it in the show notes for this particular show, which is extremehealthradio.com/609. And that was interesting too, because within natural dog training or conventional dog training, you have this sort of pack mentality, which is what I think Cesar Millan talks about, and generally most dog trainers talk about the pack mentality, and that is like the alpha, and you have to be the alpha as the owner of the dog, so that it doesn't think that it has to rule the roost. It looks to you for that, and all this stuff, and all of that. So, but Kevin Behan talked about a completely different view of how the mind of an animal works, particularly a dog. And so when he talked to us about natural pet, not raising, but training, natural pet training, that was an interesting show. But it wasn't really like a vet like Dr. Falconer. And then we had Dr. Robert Mueller on the show, and he's from the Barf World raw dog food. In fact, I should show that to you because this is what we give to our dogs. Let me bring that up on our show page here, so you guys can take a look at it if you want. This is called the Barf. I know it sounds weird, right? It sounds really kind of bizarre. The Barf diet. I don't know. I mean, I love their company and I love what they're doing, and our dogs just thrive off this food. But man, I don't know, that name is less than desirable, it seems. But yeah, our dogs love this stuff. It's raw, and we've had Robert Mueller on the show multiple times. And he talked about, what's in this food and why it's different than conventional kibble. And so what's cool about the barf diet is that it is it's like what Dr. Falconer talked about. It's muscle meat, it's organ meat, and it's bone, and so you get that really great acid alkaline balance with your dogs. And so, like Dr. Falconer say, it's funny because you ever get this, like within the natural health community, you have people that just don't understand. Because Charlie right now, if you follow us on Instagram, you probably know who Charlie is, but she's itching like crazy, and people will say, well, you're feeding your dog, raw food. How come, they're itching? Or do you ever get this with people too? They say to you, well, you do all this cleansing and you focus all this, time and energy on your health, and, how come you got the flu? Right. And it's an interesting question, but I think it's almost a defense mechanism for people that want to make fun of you or fun of us, and, to not put in the work themselves, because they think, oh, well, if you're so healthy, how come you're getting sick? Well, not understanding how the body works and how the body gets rid of toxins and chemicals, you start realizing that once you do understand that, then it's a much deeper issue as to why we get sick. So, I hadn't gotten sick since I changed my diet in 2003 and went raw food. And even after in 2010, all the way up until 2016, I didn't get sick once. But then last few years, I've gotten sick. And so, it's fortunately for me, though, I have a lot of tools at my disposal at my house. We got the Bellicon Rebounder. We have the sauna, which helps improve immunity. And I'll tell you guys a little bit about that in a second. But when you do get sick, if you do get sick, and you understand natural health and healing, it really allows you to go into the sickness and just be okay with it and allow it to work its course. And you can usually cut these things off in like less than half the time. But anyway, I digress a little bit, but people will say, well, how come Charlie's itching if she's on the Barf World dog food? Well, it's like what Dr. Falconer was saying. Sometimes a dog will have an allergic reaction to a vaccine, and that will pervade their entire life. And so I'm convinced that she's thriving, for one, on this dog food, but she would be even thriving more had she never got vaccinated. And I think she got tons of vaccines before we got her, which is so sad. Little Charlie. Anyway, if you guys want to check out the Barf World, this is what we feed our dogs. I'm curious to see that link from Dr. Falconer. I want to see what he feeds or what raw food he recommends as well. I'm a big fan of cycling through things. And, they have at Barf 3 different recipes: beef, chicken, and I think lamb. And, we cycle through those with our dogs. But, it's always good to mix it up. But if you guys are looking for good dog food, check out the Barf World raw dog food. And then the other thing I want to tell you about too is these green wave filters. We just did a whole show with Brian Hoyer all about dirty electricity, but not just dirty electricity. We talked with him about EMF, and he's what they call a building biologist. And so what he does is he'll do a consultation, and he'll get I think he's in Cincinnati, and he'll travel around the country, and he'll usually do like groups of people. So he might get 10 or 20 clients in like the LA area, for example, or near a big city or somewhere all together, sort of clustered so that it makes sense with his time. And he'll go to your house and do hours and hours of testing to figure out how much EMF you're being exposed to. And so it's really fascinating. But one of the roles, because people think EMF and they think, well, it's all just one thing, but there's 5G, there's wireless, there's non-native EMF in the form of blue light, there's dirty electricity, and then there's the magnetic fields and stuff like that just come off your devices. And so we're bathing in a sea of this stuff, but problem is we can't see it. So one of the ways of mitigation is these green wave filters. I will say it doesn't do anything to the ambient EMF that's sort of just floating around like this 5G that they're going to be installing here pretty soon. And by the way, the other day I was walking Charlie and Coco around our neighborhood, and there's a church right next to our neighborhood. And in that church, there's a huge cell tower. So you guys can go on to antennasearch.com if you guys want to check that out. But there's a huge cell tower they're putting up and erecting right next to our neighborhood. So that's a little cue for us that we got to start looking at somewhere else to live. But anyway, these green wave filters, you can buy a meter with them. And what they do is they completely knock out the dirty electricity. This is if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. This is the broadband EMI meter put out by this company, and you can test the dirty electricity in your walls. And what's cool is that you plug these things in, and they mitigate, I think, around 95% of the frequency and the different magnetic fields that are floating around in your wall and the wires. And so this stuff, this dirty electricity, has been shown to, been correlated with diabetes and changing and altering blood sugar levels in people and their insulin resistance and things like that. So if it's doing that, if that's measurable and people have known that, then man, what else is it doing? And so that's kind of what we talked about with Brian Hoyer. So if you guys want to check out the Greenway filters or the Barf World dog food, go to our store. I'll put those links in the show page if you guys are watching on YouTube. And that way you guys can get access to them. We're adding new products to our store all the time so that you guys can get access to a lot of the really cutting edge items that we kind of use in our home. Cool, seeing a lot of familiar faces here on YouTube. This is awesome. Maria, thanks for joining us today. I got your email the other day about your twins. How amazing. What a story. My goodness. What a story. Shoot, we didn't talk about rabies. Mandatory here in Florida. You know what? The rabies vaccine is mandatory just about everywhere. And I should have asked him about that, but I did have, I have gone through a lot of his material, Dr. Falconer, with regards to rabies. And it sounds to me like that is just one thing that people have to do, unfortunately, because people, people will sue over that kind of stuff. But I have heard him say that, rabies is not an issue. But according to the law, it's like one of those things that you have to get done once. The problem is that they want you to continue to get boosters and updates and all that kind of stuff. And, that's where the titers comes in. And that's where the education of the doctors comes in as well. Do animals, ZZ Captain says, do animals really have 4 times the immune system of humans? I've never heard of that, actually. So is that like having a cat having 9 lives? Julia says that she has seen tremendous improvements in her dog since changing her diet. Yeah, diet is huge, and exposing your dog to food that they would normally eat in the wild. I mean, it goes to the same thing is true with humans, eating an ancestral diet, figuring out what our ancestors ate, and eating a wild food diet too, because people don't realize, the primal people or the people that eat, paleo, they're eating steaks, right? But a steak comes from a cow, which is a hybrid animal. There was no cows when the earth was created or evolved or whatever your thing is. There was no cows. There was something called the aurochs, and mankind invented cows. So and same thing with chickens, like when we start eating this food that's hybridized, that's not really a genetically normal animal that was here to begin with, then we start having issues, right? Because it doesn't matter if you cook the meat, you do the primal diet and you eat it raw like Agenus vonderplanus does. If you're eating a hybridized animal, that's not going to be optimal for our health. So same goes with animals as well, making sure they eat healthy. There's some people that I've found that are feeding their cats a vegan diet. Whew. Can you imagine feeding your cat a vegan diet? That's crazy. Let's see if anybody else of you. Julia says, Maria, have you ever heard of titer tests? They test to see if your dog is protected and can therefore reduce over-vaccinating. Yeah, so the titers are really important too, because we need more doctors to start recognizing this, because they're showing antibody production for a lifetime as a result of one vaccine. So the fact that they don't really recognize titers, to me, is, in my opinion, it has to do with profits, because it's much more profitable for them to be tied to the vaccine industries. Because the pharmaceutical industry and the pharmaceutical companies have taken hostage the CDC and all of doctors and the way school is taught. Medical schools, I'm sure it's like this with vet schools too, but medical schools are basically there to be another arm, a marketing arm, of the pharmaceutical industries. And that's specifically why the doctors are always prescribing a pill for every ill. And so the issue with all of this stuff when it comes to natural pet raising and natural animal, raising animals in a natural way, it assumes that we're going to take, responsibility for our animals. And so this is the problem, is that human beings innately and inherently, we want to give up our freedom. We want that. We don't want to be free, because being free requires so much effort and so much work. Imagine if you were to extract yourself from the supposed freedom we have as American. As an American, they say we're free, right? But we're not free at all. If you were to truly be free, then you would, through contract law, get rid of your birth certificate. And you would do the same thing with your house, and you would actually own your house. We don't own our homes. People think we own things. Actually, from a legal perspective, we do own them, but we don't control them. So that's why the Rockefeller said, own nothing, control everything. So to truly be free requires that you would have to, bond the fire department and bond the police department, so that, if there's a fire at your house, you would pay them to come out to your house. But we get all these benefits and privileges by living in this modern world. And one of those benefits and privileges is this idea that we can outsource our health to doctors and veterinarians and have them take care of something that we should have prevented in the first place. So it's really a lot of work to be free, right? From a legal perspective, from a health perspective, from every other perspective you can think of, it's a lot more work to actually take care of yourself and not outsource that to someone else. And so that's why it's really important to do a lot of this work ourselves, to educate ourselves. Trial by Ordeal says, do dogs and cats make vitamin C? Oh, this is a good question. Man, I think you typed this in right after we closed out the show with Dr. Falconer. And what milligrams daily would our pets make it? How much vitamin C correlates to benefiting immune functions? You know what? That's a really good question. And I should have asked Dr. Falconer that question. It's my understanding that human beings are the only species of mammal that doesn't make vitamin C in our own bodies, which is why we have to supplement that. It's my understanding that dogs and cats do make vitamin C. I might stand corrected on that, but if I am wrong about that, let me know. So yeah, let me see if there's any other questions here. Oh, I wanted to tell you about the items that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, which is those summits that are coming up, and the sauna sale price too. So I'll get to that in just a second. John on Facebook says, my dog was a rescue and she was allergic to everything. I gave her organ meats, oatmeal, Brussels sprouts, and dry dog food. Now the allergies are gone. No way. Wow, she was allergic to everything. You know what would be a great thing to do? John, wouldn't it be great to somehow do a detox protocol and detoxing all of these chemical adjuvants and things out of the vaccines, out of their body? Now that would be something really cool. Maria on Facebook on Extreme Health Academy says, thanks for the information. I love all your shows. Well, thank you, Maria. We appreciate that. We put a lot of work and effort into these shows, and trying to get information out to all of you guys. And if you're watching on Dr. John Bergman's channel, you're probably wondering, like I mentioned before, who the heck is Extreme Health Radio? Who's Dr. Falconer? Why am I saying this? So this is a joint partnership that we're doing with Dr. John Bergman, and that is the Extreme Health Academy. If you want to join the Academy, Dr. Bergman is teaching courses in there, and I'm doing a bunch of content as well. I'm going to be doing a sleep course here pretty soon. But he is teaching most of the courses inside this Academy, and we've done autoimmune diseases, we've done the cancer, prevent and heal cancer naturally, we've done the Building Invincible Immunity course, the nervous system course, which is how our body modulates and reacts to the environment, right? Our nervous system. And by the way, this goes transgenerational too. We download things from previous generations into our nervous system. That gets into recall healing and timeline therapy and stuff like that. But Dr. Bergman did a whole course on the immune system or the nervous system. And then the guide to improving digestion naturally and hormones, and the 3 stressors course. We have a yoga course. A lot of cool stuff that's happening every month. And we do Q&A calls every single week. There's so much happening inside the Extreme Health Academy. So if you guys want to join that, the link to do that is extremehealthacademy.com. And I'll put a link in the Extreme Health Radio YouTube channel if you guys want to check that out. And the code to get a free 14-day trial is EHR14, if you guys want to check that out. So let me fade this back over to me and see if there's any other questions here. Trial by ordeal. In the event our pets make vitamin C daily, then under acute conditions such as a broken leg, then that requirement for it goes up a manyfold in milligram amounts because adrenals have to take priority of it. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, whenever we have an issue, whether it's in our own life or with animals' life, our body really does know what to do. The problem is vaccines screw up and scramble our innate ability for our organs through the Chinese meridian systems to talk to themselves. And when your body can't communicate to itself, when one organ can't communicate to another, because essentially we are light beings, right? We're quantum beings where our body and our organ can communicate to other parts of our body in faster than speed communication. And so when we take something like a vaccine, or we're exposed to huge amounts of non-native EMF in the form of blue light and radiation from cell phones and things, we're screwing up our body's electrical system to be able to carry that voltage and to communicate to itself. And so that's a real issue. And so when we do have a catastrophic acute injury like a broken leg or something, our body innately knows what to do. And that's what Dr. Bergman talks about all the time is, our body knows what to do, and it's self-healing and self-regulating. Yeah, P900 or P100. Awesome to have you here. I haven't seen you here in a couple of days, but great to have you here. Jazz Minder says, talking about itching, I think, should I use a natural human-grade shampoo on my dog like Jason brand? You know what? Stay tuned for this show page. This is episode 608, and I'll put the links to all of the things that Dr. Falconer talked about. That way we can put some natural shampoos up. Yeah, go more natural if possible. Always got to go natural, on your shampoos, on your skin, all of that. It's really important to do that. So as far as the different summits that are coming out, there's the autoimmune. Let me put these in the show notes for those that are watching now live and those that are going to be watching in the future. There's some really cool summits coming out, and I'll put links to them here. And those are the Autoimmune Revolution Summit, and that's coming up very soon. The Female Hormone Summit and the Pregnancy Summit. These are all starting very, very soon, and you can get access to those. And I would highly recommend being a part of these summits, and I do that. I learn further, because what's really cool about these summits is that you can dive further. Like, you can actually go and just spend, get 10 or 15 or 20 different practitioners' approaches on just one subject. So you can go super, super deep with these summits. And I'm a big fan of those, the summits. So the Autoimmune Revolution, the Female Hormone Summit, and the Pregnancy Summit. These are all coming up. And I did promise to tell you about the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. We're running a sale on that thanks to Phil Wilson. He's allowing us to do that until the 23rd of September, 2018. That's coming up in 3 days from now. This is Thursday, the 20th. So on the 23rd, the sale price goes away, and essentially it is $150 off. So if you go to our store, I'll put a link to it actually in the show page here. Let's see. It's under light. I put the sauna under light because it is a light. It uses far infrared light on the inside of it. And the tent is sort of lined with silver, so it becomes almost like a mirror reflecting the light. But make sure don't purchase the sauna from our page because you won't see the discount. Email me, Justin, Justin, at extremehealthradio.com, and I'll give you the link to make a purchase if you want to grab that $150 discount on the sauna. So just wanted to let you guys know about that. Okay, finally, just want to give you an update. On Friday, we're going to be talking with Jason Prawl about longevity secrets. So that's going to be interesting. He just wrapped up a documentary called The Human Longevity Project, I think. And I just tagged him on Instagram because I was listening to one of his podcasts he did with a guy up here in LA. So that's going to be interesting, right? I mean, how long should we live? How long do we have the ability to live? Is it possible for us to live to 150 and beyond? What are the main issues that are causing us to break down? If you follow the Bible, if you read the book of Genesis, the curse of Genesis was that women would have excruciating pain in childbirth, which is kind of bizarre, right, when you really think about that. But the other curse was that man's lifespan would be cut short to 120 years. Now, we're about 45 years shy of that in our modern culture. So what are we doing wrong? What's wrong with our current culture that we're only living to about 75 years old? And should we be able to live longer? Is it possible to live to 150? If you follow our Instagram, we put a thing on there where a guy was a Chinese monk, actually went and taught in the Chinese army at 77 years old, and he lived till he was 253. I don't know if that's true, but it's interesting, right? So what's possible for us? And the real question too is, would you want to live that long? Is that something that sounds interesting to you? Because we think, like in our culture, that we wouldn't want to live that long because, we see these people that are 70, 80 years old and they just look, shriveled up and dying. That's because we don't have any models in our current paradigm, in our current worldview, in our current world of healthy people, 95, 100 years old, doing their own gardening, completely with it, able to get around, able to ambulate, able to be flexible. If you could live like that, would you want to? So that is going to be a cool show. We were going to have Jason on in studio, but we're going to bring him on remotely because we're having some microphone issues. Then we got Nadia, and we're going to be talking with her, Nadia Pedaguana, I think her last name is. We'll be talking with intermittent fasting with her. That's something that I do every day. I give my body about 16 to 18 hours of fasting every day. So we're going to be talking about the benefits of that and why you should consider that. And maybe some of the differences between men and women when they do intermittent fasting. So then we got Dr. Darren Engels, and we're going to be talking with him about Lyme disease. He's our local doctor, and he's been working with Kate a lot during her pregnancy. So that'll be a cool show. And then we're going to talk with Dr. William Pollack on next Friday about PEMF therapy, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And we use the IMRS 2000 that's in our store. I used it last night. I use it every day. And that's a PEMF device. And so bringing more magnetism and bringing more light and the proper kinds of water into your protocol, into the foundation of your health practice of how you take care of yourself is incredibly important. People are all focused on food, but it's really about light, water, and magnetism. And what trumps those three things, in my opinion, is spirituality, connectedness, having a purpose, having a meaning in your life, having a mission, helping people, being happy, feeling good. All of that, what encapsulates all of that, trumps anything in the physical. But when you get into the physical, it's all about light, water, and magnetism. And then beyond that, I mean, food is like, I put together a list. I'm going to be doing something for the Extreme Health Academy on this. Food is almost number 12 on the list in terms of importance. But because it's so toxic today, people focus on it. And it's really the easiest. It's like the low-hanging fruit, right? It's easy to sort of fix something that's wrong with your diet, right? I mean, it's not easy, but it's easy to do. I mean, like if you were to just go to the grocery store, instead of buying, a bunch of crappy food, it's easy to buy fruit and vegetables, right? But sticking to that and all of that is more challenging. But switching your diet is much easier than adopting a meditation practice or quitting your job, or ending a relationship with your spouse because it's toxic, or moving to a new environment, which we might have to do now because of this huge, massive cell tower. So you can't expect to heal in the same environment that you got sick in. And what underlies the reason and the motivating factors for us changing our environment and developing a spiritual practice is a spiritual connectedness, a feeling of belonging, and feeling connected to others, and inviting in the spiritual side of this healthy lifestyle that we're living, because it does no good. It does no good to be an angry vegan, right? Or an angry, paleo diet kind of, or angry ketogenic, if we're losing track and losing focus of why we're here and what we're trying to do, and feeling connected and having a connection with others, if we're losing that, then no amount of changing your diet is going to do anything for you. You really have to get to the root cause. And this is the things that we talk about in the academy, is changing those things, because you can't expect to continue to hit your head against the wall, and instead of taking aspirin, you take white willow bark, and then you wonder why it's not working. Well, the issue is not that you're hitting your head against the wall, is that you feel like you have to. That's the hard thing to change. That is the core root of it all. It's not that you're actually hitting your head against the wall. People would say, oh, if you don't hit your head against the wall, then you won't have a headache. And then you just stop hitting your head against the wall. But then after that, you struggle because you have this addiction to doing it, or you have some motivating force, motivating reason that's causing you to hit your head against the wall. That unspoken, invisible process and desire and addiction and lack of connectedness and whatever that is, that's the root cause of our illnesses. And that requires developing a spiritual practice. That requires really getting into personal development, personal growth. That requires all of these things that are hard to sell people, right? It's easy to sell turmeric. It's easy to sell white willow bark, but it's not easy to get to the root cause of your issues. But that's what we need to do. If we really want to heal, if we really want to take our health to new levels, that's what we have to do. Diet and this whole change is really about personal growth, because there's many different ways to get into changing your life for the better. Diet's a great way because it's something you do every day, and it's something that you can get a handle on. But once you start realizing that it's much more than diet, it's not about just swapping something bad out with something good. It's a much deeper connection to who you are, why you're here. Because then if you start thinking about it, if all your friends are going out to pizza, if your motivation is simply the physical, you're going to think to yourself, well, I can cheat. We had a guy in our academy talking about that, about cheat days. And there's nothing wrong with cheat days. I don't judge anybody for that. But in my opinion, when it comes down to the motivating factors as to why people do what they do, is they're so disconnected with their mission that the cheating is almost completely disconnected from that. So not only do they not know what their mission here on earth is, but they don't realize the two are connected. And so ultimately, a better motivating factor to change our diet and to be a better person and to make these changes, these healthy changes in our life, is how would eating this food affect what my mission here on earth is? Now that's a weird question, right? That's like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, how would eating a hamburger from a fast food restaurant affect my mission? Well, when you start really getting into personal development and spiritual growth, you start realizing every thought that you think, every bite of food that you take, every direction that you go, every person you hang out with, everything you let into your physical body affects the future outcome of whatever you're doing in this life. And so when we lose track of that, it's really easy to say, oh, well, I just would like, maybe I just won't eat this food because I won't be able to fit into a pair of skinny jeans or something, or I won't be able to look good in this muscle shirt or whatever it is, right? If you're purely focused on the physical changes all the time. So what happens when you can fit into the skinny jeans? Then it's time to cheat, right? And you're going back and forth because you're disconnected with what your mission is. that food is not fueling your mission. And what's great about, personal development people is that if you look at someone like Tony Robbins, you start watch that documentary on Netflix he had recently with it's called I Am Not Your Guru, and you start realizing, like, man, he's really into like cold thermogenesis. He's really into rebounding. He had a Bellicon rebounder at his house. He's really into acid alkaline balance and nutrition, because he realizes that to become the best, the best version of yourself that you can ever be, you can't just eat horrible food. Right? But you can eat horrible food if you have a great metabolism and you can look good in skinny jeans. So it's so much deeper than just the physical. And that's why if you're going to get on this path of healing and taking control of over your own health, it's so important, in my opinion, after doing 609 shows and being involved in this natural healing, crazy lifestyle since 2003, that, man, it's much deeper than just the physical. And so I invite you guys to, whatever your spiritual path is, whether you're a Christian, you're Buddhist, or whatever your path is, just bring more of that into your life and start looking at mentors in the personal development realm that really resonate with you. We all have these different people that help us. I'm a really big fan of Jim Rohn. I got an email the other day asking, who I listen to and stuff. Jim Rohn is his course, The Challenge to Succeed, was one of the most influential courses I've ever gone through. The Challenge to Succeed. I'm a big fan of Bob Proctor. I like him a lot. So find people that are motivating to you and just start getting into their stuff. Start getting into their stuff. I think it's so important to fill your head with information that's going to empower you. Super, super important. So we got a lot of cool stuff. So if you're listening as a podcast, if you're listening on Stitcher or iTunes, make sure to subscribe to the show. If you're on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're listening, make sure to subscribe to the shows, because I don't want you guys to miss any of the stuff we have going on. You don't have to, but you will miss a ton because we're doing shows 3 days a week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Let me just check in the chat room here. Oh, yeah, Cool Pick says, I was here the other day, Justin, listening to the C60. Ah, okay. Yeah, we had a troll on in the chat. Remember that? I banned that guy. I didn't know that you could do that, but I banned him from our YouTube, because, there's people that come in here and they're just, I don't know, man. We're attracting really great people. If you go into our academy, somehow the people that are in there are so nice. If you guys are listening on the podcast, and the people in our chat are so nice and so cool. But it was weird to have a troll on the other day. In fact, I didn't see it until later. I came home and Kate was telling me all about it. But we do our best to get rid of people like that, and it's tough. People like that, they obviously are looking for some outlet, right? Something's not going wrong, or something's not going right in their life. So, Jazzminder says, yeah, Google Iron Shirt. What does that mean? Google Iron Shirt. Electrical systems are best served by remineralization. We are deficient in minerals, and that is the reason the liver gets cut. Or lives get cut short. Yeah, that's an interesting theory. I've heard that as well. Yeah, mineralization is massive, and making sure to bring in those minerals into our lives, because it's the minerals that create the scaffolding that allows the electrical pulses in our body to be carried from one location to the other. So yeah, minerals are key. Dr. Joe Wallach. Okay, yeah, I'll check him. I've listened to a lot of his stuff, and I'll see if he's a good fit for the show, and I think he is. And ZZ Captain says, stem cells are capable of doing miracles, I think. Availability of, oh gosh, how do you say this word? Mesenchymal stem cells. It would be really interesting to have Neil Riordan, PhD, on your show. Okay, yeah, the Riordan Clinic. Yeah, you know what? A friend of ours, Luke Story, I think went to his clinic. Okay, yeah, I'll put him down on the list. If you guys have anybody that you want us to talk to, let us know, and we'll reach out to them. He has a couple DVDs. Okay, Okay, cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. We love you all very much. We're going to be back tomorrow talking about, wait, today's Thursday? Yeah, today's Thursday. We'll be talking about longevity tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get access to all the shows as we do them live. And that way you can be kept up to date and as well on Facebook and on iTunes. Make sure to subscribe. I appreciate that. And yeah, thank you, Cool Picks. Appreciate that. It's good to see regulars. I see you guys, and I just love seeing regulars. It's really, I don't know what it is. It's really fun to see regular people coming in and chatting, and I just have a good time with it. So you guys are amazing. In fact, I look forward to every show that we do because I'm going to see you guys in the chat room. Jazzminder, I do. The email address is, let me put it in the chat room, Justin@extreme, I can spell, extremehealthradio.com. And also, too, if you guys want to see or get access to the discount on the sauna, make sure to email me, Justin at Extreme Health Radio. That goes till Sunday at midnight. Maria, awesome to see you here as well. Super, super cool. Yeah, love all you guys. Let us know if we can ever help, and if there's ever anything we can do for you, please let us know. That's why we're doing what we're doing. So that is it. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Just remember, you are doing amazing. You're doing the best you can, and keep telling yourself that, and keep always striving for optimal. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. We love you so, so much. Let me bring up our little legal disclaimer here so that people don't sue us for making claims. It's funny you have to have that, right? All right, guys, we love you so, so much. We love you all, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow at 10:45. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, too, if you guys want updates on the live shows. All right, guys, love you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use, or misuse of this